Welcome to the Indiana Basketball Weekly Show on the Gruely Truth Sports Network. I'm your host for the Indiana Basketball Weekly Show, Mike Goodpaster. Right now, I'd like to welcome in my co-host, Kent Sterling. How you doing, Kent?
You know what? I feel enlightened, Mike, because I always wondered what Indiana would be like, how competitive they would be if Deron Davis and Al Durham wound up leading them in points. And I think we found out today that is not a recipe for winning.
Well, you think maybe that's because we, for some reason, came out to start the second half and tried to make Joey Brunk the go-to guy instead of Deron Davis?
That was odd. That was really, really odd. I think if Joey Brunk gets 10 field goal attempts, as he did in this game, that's also not a recipe for success. Because that was clearly the message coming out of the locker room was pound the ball low to Joey. And how many shots does Joey have to take in order to get to, let's say, score 15 points? I think he'd probably have to get somewhere between 22 and 25 shots. That just wasn't going to get it done. I didn't understand it at all.
I think it'd be more like 45 to 50 to get 15 points against Michigan because the thing it looked like to me is Michigan looked like a bunch of grown men down at the Y playing a bunch of fifth graders.
Well, you know, with guys like Wagner and Teskey in particular, Teskey's just a better version of Joey Brunk. So that's not a matchup where you're gonna get any traction throughout the game. But by God, at the beginning of the second half, that's where Archie kind of threw his chips into the middle of the table and said, "Here's how we're going to win." And we saw exactly what that got us.
Now, Indiana did hold Michigan under 60% field goal percentage, and, I mean, they kept them under 55% from the three-point line, so the defense was impressive.
Yeah, you know what? They either help too quickly or they don't help at all, and, you know, it was kind of like, okay, where are you going to hang your hat? Where are you planting your flag defensively? Are you going to help on everything, or are you going to help on nothing? They kind of alternated, and it seemed like they never made the right choice.
Yeah, and on the other hand, I mean, Indiana got out-rebounded 37-21. I mean, is that even possible?
We've seen that it is. They did not rebound the ball well at all, and you saw Jerome Hunter lead the team with 5 rebounds. That also not a real good recipe for success. Trace Jackson Davis with 1 rebound and 5 points. So clearly, I mean, what Juwan Howard wanted was to, mitigate Trace Jackson Davis, and they got that done on both ends of the floor. This, to me, his worst game as a freshman for Indiana. And, was his play worth, negative 24 points? No, this was a team loss, but I didn't think Trace really played with the same tenacity or the same level of kind of basketball intellect and IQ that we've seen in the past.
All right. What I saw from this was Trace Jackson Davis is a freshman. He's a great player, but he's just not strong enough or physical enough yet to deal with those guys. And I don't know why Deron Davis wasn't played more in this game, just because of the matchup situations. Because I think Jackson Davis and Brunk were kind of overpowered underneath. And I think that what's the harm in trying Deron Davis? And, Deron was 9 for 9. And the one stat that I found where Indiana had an advantage is Indiana did win the foul game because they had 18 fouls and Michigan only had 16. So we won that.
Well, that's a win. And we also won the turnover battle. Only 7 turnovers. How you shooting 46% from the field and turning the ball over 7 times and you lose 24 points. You don't see that every day.
Well, you also don't give up 60% shooting every day either.
No, and, Devontae Green reverted back to form. 1 of 7 from the field, 4 rebounds, not too bad. 1 assist. I mean, as a team, they had 7 assists. That's not their sweet spot. You've got to be able to – I don't know what the breakdown is. I know with some teams, 14 assists is really, really important. If you get more, it's tough to beat some teams with 14 or more assists and easy to beat teams with less. I'll bet Indiana's right in that area where when they have less than 14 assists, they are really kind of easy pickings, and they were today. And that's not necessarily a reflection on their unwillingness or lack of willingness to pass the basketball, just their inability to score off passes. And we saw that today once in a while. They'd kick it and miss, and that's kind of the way it goes. And today, that's really the way it went.
Yeah, and I still don't understand what they're trying to do on offense, Ken, or defense.
No, the offense is, although, you know what, it was less annoying to me today because I don't think that there was a shot clock violation, and they didn't take it down to 2 seconds before they kicked it to Joey Brunk. They generally moved the ball with purpose. It was just that, shots didn't fall, and then the defense was abysmal. The defense was just terrible. It was like they were moving. They were kind of underwater, and Michigan was playing without gravity. It was that stark. I mean, everything that Michigan wanted to do, they did. They got a bunch of easy buckets, and I don't think they allowed any.
Yeah, and I didn't see any purpose on the defense, and that's what worries the most. It didn't look like there was a plan, and if there was, it wasn't executed.
And this is a team, let's face it, it's not quite good enough to go into somebody else's house, play imperfect basketball for 40 minutes, and get a win against a quality team. I mean, it's just what they would have to do in order to win against a team like Michigan on the road is play really sound fundamental basketball and hit a bunch of shots. And I don't think they're capable of playing sound basketball on either end for 40 minutes. And more often than not, they don't hit a bunch of shots. Durham and Davis notwithstanding today.
Now, why would they not be a sound basketball team?
I don't think they're built that way. I don't think that you've got guys who understand fundamentally exactly how to play. And like you look at Devontae Green defensively, and he's not a bad on-ball defender, but when he's got to make a decision about keeping a foot in the lane or getting out on a shooter, when it's up to him to do the right thing or do the wrong thing, man, does he make the wrong choice a lot.
All right. You can actually send us direct messages at Grueling Truth on Twitter, and we have one from Corey in Logansport, who says that he has targeted excuses, that Juwan Howard is a first-year coach and he is doing fine, and 9 out of 12 guys that played today are Archie Miller guys.
Well, it depends. I don't know that that's true.
I would like to bring up to Corey that that's not a question either, but go ahead.
Yeah. You know what? Race Thompson and Devontae Green and Deron Davis and Justin Smith and Al Durham are all Crean guys. They were all Crean commits. The juniors, those are guys who didn't play for Crean, but they were recruited by him. So I ascribe those guys to Crean as Crean-type players. What they need, though, you know who they need, and this is kind of ironic, is they need Archie Miller. They need a 2019-2020 version of what Archie Miller was 20 years ago for North Carolina State. They need a guy like a T.J. McConnell, a guy who's going to make it go, who's going to run the offense, make sure the guys are in the right spots, hit them where they need to be hit, time the offense correctly, and get this thing moving. And they don't have a guy like that. They don't have, one of those guys who's going to make sure everybody's doing the right stuff. They don't have him.
All right. We could give out a call-in number, Kent, because we're starting to get a lot of questions. But I think that we're probably better off not today by looking at the questions. So I will read the questions.
Well, we don't have an FCC license to protect.
I know, but still. I mean, then they'll ban us from YouTube, and Google AdSense will kick us off. That happened to us a couple of years ago because of
Did it
somebody.
Really?
Yeah. We lost our monetization on YouTube and Google AdSense for like 6 months. And it was a show I wasn't on. Well, the topic was, it wasn't even a show I did, but somebody did a topic about whether transgender men should be allowed to compete with women. And they didn't even say anything really bad other than they didn't think they should, because I'm not going to go any farther than that because I don't want to get banned again. But, yeah, they took us down for like 6 months because they said it was offensive.
Wow.
So,
well, let's not do that.
There you go. All right, we have a question from Al in Chicago. And Al says that Archie Miller has been here 3 years. Why wouldn't he bring in an Archie Miller?
That's a great question. And that's really at the crux to the issue, right? What do you do? How do you build this culture? Do you build it as one of the least of the elites or as one of the best of the non-elites? How do you go about your business? Do you target top 20 guys, hoping that you get a couple? Or do you target those guys who fit the culture that you're trying to build? And it's kind of like Archie's trying to split the baby, right? He's bringing in some cultural guys, but then he's also going out and trying to get the best players available. So you wind up with a one-and-done kid like Romeo playing amongst a bunch of guys who are never going to play in the league. And we may be down that road again with maybe a two-and-done situation with Trace Jackson Davis. But what are you supposed to do? Not recruit the best kids in Indiana? Like, that doesn't make any sense. But you've got to go get guys who are going to play basketball the right way and have a decent brain on top of their necks so that they're in the right place at the right time and they're willing to compete, not just when it's convenient, not just when you're playing in front of your brother, but when you go to Ann Arbor. And all these games count. You know, these wins and losses count no matter where you play them and no matter who it's in front of. And you better comport yourself with that level of competitiveness game after game after game, or what the hell are we doing here? And that's kind of the question, too, is, geesh, we kind of know where we're at with some of these guys. How about we turn the page and we move forward and we start putting guys on the floor who are going to compete at a high level game in and game out?
All right, so my take on this is this. You don't build a culture. You install a culture when you get there. If you ever deviate from that culture even once, you've lost that culture and you'll never have a culture. So right now, I think he needs to recruit the best players he can find because I think the only way he wins here is to have better players than everybody else can.
Well, that isn't going to happen unless he pays them. Well, unless he goes into his pocket like Memphis, that isn't going to happen.
Yeah, but I mean, why can't we? Damn it, I want to win, Kent.
Well, let me ask you, if you've got a kid or if you're being recruited and you're being recruited by Kentucky, Duke, North Carolina, and in Indiana, where are you going? You know what I mean?
I going?
You're not going to Indiana.
Well, I'm not going to Kentucky because I can read and write.
Sheesh.
What? I don't like Kentucky. I mean, come on. When your greatest, most iconic coach was a known racist, what the hell? Come on.
Yeah, that's quite true.
Plus, you had an alcoholic Eddie Sutton, and I don't know what the hell to call Joe B. Hall, other than just a dude that stood there with a lot of talent and never really accomplished what he should have.
Boy, did he ruin guys, right? I mean, nothing against Joe B. Hall, but my God, how many guys got there at the highest level and left Kentucky at the lowest level? I mean, Derek Horde, Charlie Hurt, they just kept bringing in 5-star guys after 5-star guys and turning them into 3-star guys. It was unbelievable.
They still won a national championship, but he should have won a lot more than he should have won more than one in a decade he was there almost.
And that was a good cultural team. You know, you had Jack Givens, who was terrific. You had Roby and Phillips and Macy and Scheidler. That team in '78 was badass. They were a good group of kids.
I still cheer for Duke against them because I still hated them. I don't care if they've got 12 choir boys that all just save somebody's life. I'm still cheering against Kentucky.
You know, I almost called that score on the nose. We were on spring break with my uncle. My uncle, gambled his ass off. And he was like, who do you think's going to win this game? You pay attention. And I told him that I thought Kentucky was going to win, and I can't remember the score, but I almost hit it on the number. And so he bet, according to my guidance, he won a lot of money.
94 to 88, if I remember correctly.
I was a little kid. I mean, what was he, a crazy person? And he didn't cut me in. I didn't get any.
Yeah, because you were a little kid. It's not like you strong-arm him to get the money.
I'm still bitter.
Yeah, and when I look at this, though, most of these questions are unaskable here.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Because I'm pretty sure that Archie, it did not look like his head was up there, Veronica, from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. All right, I'm going to stop reading the questions because I'm losing my train of thought. All right.
You know what? It's hard to win on the road, and I'm not making an excuse.
Yeah,
but they could have competed better, and they could have played better, certainly. But damn, I mean, look at what happened to Michigan State against Maryland.
Yeah, but,
how much
look
crap
at what happened to
would we be
Michigan
giving?
State against us.
Well, right. How much? And that's Tom Izzo. Like, Tom Izzo doesn't have his head up his ass. We know that. But boy, it looked like it against Maryland, and it looked like it against Indiana. How does Indiana own Michigan State in the way it does? It's ridiculous.
I can still answer this question. It's because the Big Ten is not very good. I don't care how many people said, but you may get 11 teams in, but you're going to have 9 out probably before the Sweet 16, if not more. Because the only teams I see here, are Maryland, Penn State, and Michigan State, maybe. And Penn State is a huge maybe. Maryland, I question the coaching, and Michigan State has been like this even in the preseason. So when I see that nobody can win on the road in the Big Ten, that tells me that nobody's very good. Because if you look in, like, the Big East, Villanova still wins on the road a lot. Butler wins a fair amount of games on the road. This is not parity. It's mediocrity.
And that's really what you've got in the Big East too. The one conference where there is kind of a clear delineation at the top is the Big 12 with Baylor and Kansas. But other than that, you know what? There are really, really good, competent basketball players all over the place. I think the coaching is, you don't have a dominant coach anymore. We don't see guys out coach another coach, and maybe that's the advent of the shot clock a little.
I think I saw that
back
today.
35 years ago. Well, it looked like that. But you know what? They're just big. They're old. Teskey's terrific down low. You're going to have a tough time against a guy like John Teskey. And Wagner's a really good freshman. You got guys. And the guard play for Michigan I thought was really, really good. So I think they're a talented team. Certainly, I think more talented than Indiana top to bottom. Livers is terrific, and Xavier Simpson was really, really good. 11 assists today. They were 11 of their 17 totals. So that's just a good Michigan team. It's going to happen on the road. I wish Indiana would have played better. I think they should have.
Yeah, but it seems like every loss on the road is double digits.
Well, what the hell? Would you rather have it work out the way it worked for Minnesota today against Iowa and have kind of a heartbreaking loss? We had an opportunity to kind of steel ourselves for this result, right? As the game was unfolding, there was no doubt that Indiana was going to lose this game. So,
there was no doubt when we did the show on Thursday to me, because they just played well and they can't play 2 straight games. But the problem you have now is they've lost 5 out of 6. And they're headed for the NIT at best.
Well, here's what they got to do. And we've gone over the math. You've got to hold serve at home. You got to beat Penn State, Minnesota, and Wisconsin. And you've got to steal one on the road. And they've got 3 more opportunities to do that. Minnesota's not playing real well right now, although that doesn't seem to matter too much because Indiana's playing worse. You're at Purdue. You're at Illinois. You win one of those 3. You win the 3 at home. You're going to the NCAAs.
I don't think they are. I don't think.
But that's what would have to happen.
I think what would have to happen is you would have to almost run the table, because I don't think, when you look at their record, it is deserving of it.
10-10 will get them into the tournament.
But
I get what you're saying, but if they've got 20 wins overall and 10 wins in conference, like you got to get 68 teams. You can argue whether they're worthy of it, but they're more worthy than a lot of these teams. That are knocking around in the middle of toward the bottom of the Big East and the Big Ten. I'm going to argue my way out of it. I'm heading right down the road to where you are.
We'll put it like this: with the AAC, a team like Cincinnati is like 16-9, 16-8. Xavier's like 16-9. Indiana doesn't have a better resume than either one of those teams.
Well, not better than Xavier, but I'll take a team like Indiana over a team in the AAC.
I wouldn't. Wichita State?
Well, you're not going up against the country's best
Houston?
Every single night.
Yes, you are. Houston, Wichita State, both of them could compete and be in the top 4 in the Big Ten.
Oh, stop.
Houston couldn't?
That's crazy talk.
Houston couldn't?
Well, let me see. Because I got to tell you, I don't watch a lot of Houston because Kelvin Sampson's a coach, and I hate Kelvin Sampson.
Well, everybody does,
like
and
I
that's
hate
why
the
they'll
play.
fail when they get to the tournament, but still.
So Houston is the one-ranked team in the conference. They're ranked 20th. They've got losses to BYU, Oregon, Oklahoma State. That's not bad. Tulsa, Cincinnati, and SMU by a point. I don't know. Because I don't know. Is SMU any good?
Yes,
I have no idea.
SMU is extremely good. They beat Memphis yesterday. Actually, SMU has been ranked part of the season.
Cincinnati lost to Colgate, for the love of God. They lost to
really
Tulane.
Oh,
stop.
Really good.
Everybody's really good except teams in the Big Ten. Nobody in the Big Ten lost to Colgate.
Well, Cincinnati also has a win over Tennessee. Huh? Tennessee's a good team.
Yeah.
How about this? Cincinnati beat UConn 67-51. How did Indiana fare against them?
We beat them.
It wasn't 67-51. They lost by 7 at Iowa. Indiana, thank God, has not went to Iowa, and I don't think they do, which is a good thing. They beat Memphis. They beat Temple. They beat SMU by 20 points. SMU's going to be a tournament team. They beat number 20 ranked Houston 64-62. They beat Wichita State at Wichita State by a point. They beat Memphis by 6 at home. So I think it's comparable, and I can guarantee this: if Cincinnati played Indiana ain't winning that game.
Oh, now stop.
There's no
way.
We
don't know that.
Yes, we do, because I know
Indiana,
this.
Well,
I know this. Brannon, their coach, is a tough dude.
Yeah.
That's all I need to know. Teams will follow and be the way their coaches are. And I can tell you this. I mean, I think that Cincinnati would grind them into the ground because Indiana is soft. They're soft because of Archie Miller and his weak-ass culture. And I'm tired of seeing this, and I'm tired of defending it. And I know they're not going to fire him, and that's great. But you know what? I really don't like sitting here on a Sunday afternoon against Michigan and losing for what? The 20 millionth time in a row to Michigan. We've lost a billion times in a row to
7.
Purdue. And it's not just losing to them. They physically manhandle us, and they embarrass us. And it's because we're not prepared, and we have no idea what we're doing on offense. We have no idea what we're doing on defense. And it's getting sickening to watch. And I could buy this. It's not his players. If all these players were crappy. But they're not. There's some good basketball players here, and there's no reason to, after a huge win, get beat by 25. There's no reason to be up 7 against Maryland with 1:10 left and lose.
That one hurts.
Yeah. And then they go to Penn State.
That's a bad loss.
They go to Penn State, they get dominated. They go to Ohio State, they get dominated. It's a 9-point game, but it felt a lot worse than that. They got dominated at home by a Purdue team that is not in the NCAA tournament yet and is going to have to win some games to get there. You know,
and they've had a tough time winning at home. Purdue's been not so good on the road, and they were really good at Assembly Hall.
Yeah, so I think the way Indiana does this is they have to beat Minnesota, Penn State. They got to win 1 or 2 against Purdue and Illinois, and then they got to beat Minnesota and Wisconsin.
I mean, Purdue's won on the road against Ohio, not Ohio State, but Ohio, Northwestern, who's terrible, and then Indiana. And that's it for their road wins.
Finish that. They're terrible, too.
Yeah, well, you know.
Ken, if Indiana plays.
No, I know.
If Indiana plays Michigan's schedule through the first 12 games, this is a team with a losing record right now.
Yeah, or Purdue's schedule was legitimate over the course of November. Look, it's February, what is it, the 16th. So in a month we'll know. I mean, I know this isn't good. I know that the Indiana getting to the NCAA tournament's a long shot, but I've got all off season. If that winds up being what happens, I got all off season to feel like crap about Indiana basketball and what Indiana's going to be under Archie Miller and whether they're making incremental improvements or not and whether they're capable of being a mediocre team in the Big Ten rather than the 12th best team in the Big Ten. We have all kinds of time to have that conversation. And in this, I'd rather maintain some, level of optimism and hope I'm not ready to bury him.
I am, because I'm watching this. I mean, seriously. Minnesota's 12-12. They're not a tournament team. That's a team Indiana should go beat. Let's see if it happens. And then they're going to play.
It's always hard.
Yeah.
We never play well at the Barn. It's just hardly anybody does. But
yeah, hardly Minnesota ever does too.
Yeah, they're not very good. We'll see if Richard
Luke
Pitino
Garza got
keeps
him
his
today.
job.
Yeah, Luke Garza got him today.
They scored the last 13 points of that game in the Barn against Minnesota. If I'm a Minnesota fan, if I'm like Henry T. Minnesota on this podcast for Minnesota, like it would even exist, man, am I like carrying the torches to St. Paul, Minnesota to get Richard Pitino fired immediately?
Well, the same thing happened in Indiana against Maryland, and you don't want to get our guy fired.
Well, I mean, Maryland's going to win the conference. Well, it didn't happen exactly. We didn't give up the last 13 points.
No, we gave up the last 8 after having a 7-point lead with 1 minute and 20 seconds left.
Well, look, and we know this, and you alluded to it earlier. Archie isn't going to get fired until at the earliest March of 2022. That's the way the buyout's structured. There's no way Indiana bites that bullet and eats it. And if they do fire Archie, who the hell are they going to hire if Indiana isn't willing to give, Miller more than 3 years? It's just, you got to get old, stay old. They're not old. The old that they've got is rancorous. And so, what do you Devontae and Duran, adios. They're going to be gone. You're going to get a year older everywhere else. You're going to get a year better. Maybe Leal winds up being a terrific player. Maybe Geronimo, maybe Galloway. And all of a sudden you're kind of replacing from the bottom up some guys who are not going to be forces for good, despite the fact that Davis was 9 of 9 today.
Yeah. Well, I think that Duran could probably be in better shape, and he would probably be all right.
And that's been an ongoing battle for him, whether it was because of injury or because of, just an inability to get in great condition or a lack of desire. I don't know. But, man, he looked pretty good today. But,
yes, he did.
That didn't do him any good.
How many minutes did he play?
That's a good grade. It looked, to me, from the outside looking in, like 24. But I'm just guessing at that. Let me check and see if JD has sent. No, I don't have the box score. So,
it doesn't matter.
No. At the end of the day, it truly doesn't.
Hey, Indiana State's 14-10.
Love Indiana State. Greg Lansing's a hell of a coach.
Can they get in?
Greg Lansing goes and gets kids from Terre Haute.
There you go.
What?
He could coach at Indiana.
Well, that would be, there are, and you know this from being a coach, there are a gob of really, really good coaches who just never even get a shot at the big stage. That's kind of
my point here.
Yeah. That just bad timing for a lot of those guys. Duran actually played 19 minutes.
Yeah.
So 18 points in 19 minutes. He was good. He was throwing them in. Hey, one of the things that I thought was odd, this isn't necessarily a positive, but I don't think I've ever seen a team take this many shots off the glass. A lot of bank shots for Indiana today, and a lot of them went in. And I just thought, well, this is kind of old school using the glass the way they do, but they must have converted maybe 18 to 20 shots off the glass. That was kind of I'm just searching for anything positive.
Well, I would look at it like this. Deep. I would look at it like they can't shoot at all, and they just got lucky, and it hit off the backboard and went
in. Well, when you get beat by 24, I think it's unseemly to ascribe whatever success they had to good fortune.
Yeah, I don't think it was planning.
It's just me.
I mean, it's just they banked it in. Without the bank shots, they lose 89-12. It looks like a girls' sectional first-round game between a number one team in the country, or number one team in the state, and a team that won 4 games all year. Do you think Indiana could beat the Northwestern girls team that's playing in 3A?
Oh, please.
So, yeah, I know. Look, it wouldn't even be close because Northwestern's way too coached.
This may get you thrown off, from whatever the platform is that pays money. But they're in a WNBA team in the league that could beat a really good high school boys team.
Oh, no way. There's no way that would ever happen because the WNBA sucks. And if it gets us, I mean, I don't really care anymore because I'm never going to say that they can play because I've got to hear this crap because, Kobe Bryant, rest in peace, whatever. He said that there's women playing Becky Hammond. Becky Hammond can play in the NBA. Give me a break.
No. Jeez. No, it's ridiculous. And there's nothing. I love the WNBA. I go to WNBA games, but if you got kids,
do other people?
Oh yeah, I like going to see Indiana Fever games. They're fun.
Huh?
That's good basketball. I've always been a women's basketball fan, but that doesn't mean that they could beat a competent boys team. Nor is it important that they could. That's not part of the measure of their success, I don't think, but that just like that conversation is so academically impure that it paints somebody who's a realist as a sexist. And that's just ridiculous.
I was just saying it just to make fun of Indiana and Archie Miller. But that Northwestern girls team, I think it's Northwestern, right? The 3A school is just killing everybody. They are pretty dang good.
And there's a what's her name, Sydney Parrish, a girl up at Hamilton Southeastern she's a McDonald's All-American, but she's terrific, really really fun to watch, and by all accounts a really good kid. I saw her play about a week ago, and she was wonderful. Yeah,
but that I think it's called Northwestern. I actually watched them a little bit on the Philco here. And here's a Hoosiers reference. And I mean, they can play. I think they've got like 3 girls that are going to Division I scholarships. I mean, they're pretty legit.
And good for them. I mean, and when I lived in Chicago, we went to DePaul girls games or women's games all the time. They were at Alumni Hall. It was like our neighborhood team. And we'd show up there, and they had a bar adjacent to the court where they served like 75-cent special export light. And so we'd sit there, drink beer, and watch fun basketball.
Okay, Kent.
Anything but talking about Indiana, evidently. I think we've gotten to that point where we're talking about, 25 years ago, the DePaul Blue Demons women's games with Beth Hassenmiller, and how dominant they were, and the greatness of Doug Bruno as our coach, rather than talk about, Devontae Green going 1 for 7 today.
We kind of expect that, though.
Well, has he ever followed up a really good game with another good game, ever?
My question still stands, has he ever had a really good game on the road?
And I'm not trying to crap on Devontae. He is who he is, but I don't understand why people expect something different when we've seen the same stuff for years.
I think people expect something different because everybody realizes how good he could be. Because he shows us every once in a while. I don't know whether you can be taught the game. You might have more insight to that than me.
I think there are people who are kind of born with the mindset necessary to compete at basketball and understand how the game works. And then there's some people who are just never going to get it. And I think that's Devontae. I mean, Devontae can shoot it. He can drive it. His skill level is really, really good. But his understanding of the game from a fundamental perspective, especially on the defensive end, is just abysmal. It's terrible.
Well, I would say the way he plays was probably allowed by coaches from the ages of 5 through 18, and that was all right with Tom Crean.
Yeah, well, you know what? Because he's 6'2", but he's 6'8" in length.
Yeah.
And so he's a +6, and let's go get that kid. I love his length. He deflects a lot of passes. I mean, what the hell? This is the level at which Indiana was recruiting until Miller took over. There was no evaluation at all of whether a kid understood the game on any level. It was just go get physical attributes and put them in an Indiana jersey. And to me, that's why we are where we are.
I think it might be a little bit more than that by now. And I'm not saying it's all Archie Miller, but I'm saying that I think there's a lot more here than meets the eye, maybe. So hopefully things will change. Kent, you want to tell everybody where they can find you on the internet?
Well, if after this they're even interested in finding me, I think that might be
there's a few that might want to find you, Kent.
Hey, who's that idiot who's ragging on the WNBA and who's pro Archie Miller? My
you
God,
didn't rag on it
You've
because
got
you
to
said
find
you went to
this
the
guy and burn his home to the
games.
ground.
I didn't know anybody went to the games, so nobody can take that as a bad thing.
You can find me at Kent Sterling on Twitter, KentSterling.com. I write something about Indiana basketball almost every day. It's kind of like it's psychoanalytics to me, where hopefully I can purge it and don't carry it around all day long. And you can go get the book, Oops, The Art of Learning from Mistakes and Adventures, available at Amazon.com. I wrote that, 244 pages of me telling embarrassing stories about myself and what I learned from them.
All right. When's Indiana play? Wednesday night?
That's a great question. I don't have that circled on my calendar yet. Let's see when they...
I wonder why.
They're at Minnesota on the 19th, so that is Wednesday.
All right, so we'll be back on Thursday at 2:30?
Yeah, because it's a late one. It's a 9 p.m. start, so we better get at it. We don't want to, good Lord, get our ass pounded up at the barn and then stay up until midnight, yelping about it. That doesn't sound very appealing.
Yeah,
I won't sleep.
But, all right, guys, we're going to wrap it up. You can follow me on Twitter at Grilling Truth. You can hear all of our podcasts anywhere you find podcasts, including Spotify, iHeartRadio, iTunes, TuneIn, YouTube. You name it, we're there. But for now, for Kent Sterling, I'm Mike Goodpaster. You've been listening to The Grilling Truth, where the legends speak.